Hello, everybody, and good afternoon from Saigon. It's 5 p.m. We're going to do our weekly update on COVID and the situation, especially on inbound flights to Vietnam. My name is Guido van Rooij, and I am Executive Director of DBAV. I am joined in this webinar by Frederic, General Manager from Qatar Airways, and by Evert Visser, Eurocham Vice Chair and DBAV Board Member. Emmanuel Flobbe is in the chat. He is the owner of Sunbites, and he is at the moment in quarantine in the Ibis Hotel in Saigon. So if you have specific questions about that, then you can ask those to him in the chat. The program looks like, if you have any questions, that's what I should start with, then we will answer them live or at the Q&A. We've had only 2 questions in the registrations process. We will get to that for sure. And the webinar will be recorded, and afterwards you can see everything back. Also, it's possible to view the documents that we are discussing in this webinar. In the handouts, you will see the latest information, but if you can't find that, or if that's difficult for you to find, I will make sure that that reaches your inbox tomorrow. So I've started the introduction. I would like to give you some updates this week. I will do that after the introduction. Then Frederic, he is with Qatar Airways, General Manager. They're one of 2 flight companies that are allowing people to fly into Vietnam. He will share the latest updates on that. And then there's Evert Visser. He will talk a little bit more about Eurocham's experience and DBAV's experience on getting people back to Vietnam. And the most important part, we believe, is the questions from you. So this is a highly interactive webinar. I will check the chat and moderate that. I will do that together with Emmanuel. And that's, I think, the whole program. I think this webinar should take about 20-25 minutes, so it will be a lot shorter than the first webinar. The first webinar can be watched back on YouTube. So the updates between 5 and 12 August. What we see is that the passengers on the GBA, AHK, and Eurocham flight is now coming to an end. We're seeing that the hotel booking was for 15 days. So everybody arrived on August 1st, but the authorities only started counting at August 2nd. In Saigon, for some people, testing is delayed with about 2 or 3 days, which means that passengers on that flight might have to take quarantine for even longer than the 15 days. So that is something that if you come to Vietnam, you need to take into account that quarantine can take longer than 14 days. They might ask you to stay longer. Then there is a note from the Department of Foreign Affairs about COVID testing. That's right here. It's not that new. It's from August 4. It's saying that experts have to be tested from 3 to 7 days before entering Vietnam. And these tests have to be carried out at a laboratory approved by the national government or of the departure country, or by a WHO lab. Experts must have international insurance or inviting organizations. So those are the organizations that invite an expert to come into Vietnam, commit to COVID treatment costs if you turn out to be affected. So that means if you get COVID and you have to bear the cost, not by yourself, but the inviting organization needs to pay for that. So that is the update there. This will also be shared in the post reads. There we go. Then the note on flight schedules of all airlines, that is basically unchanged. Qatar Airways and Emirates are the only 2 airlines that are allowed to fly inbound. And for example, Air Asiana Korean Airways, Vietnam Airlines, Cathay Pacific, and our Dutch pride KLM Air France are only allowed to fly outbound. So keep checking for inbound the schedules of Qatar Airways, for which we have Fred in this online event, and Emirates. Le Méridien, there were some questions about that last week. They are not a quarantine hotel in Saigon. Turns out that they did get the license from the government, but they turned out not to make use of it. The same goes for M Gallery in Saigon. Another update is that there is a report from Oxford University on Vietnam's approach during the first 100 days of COVID-19. I have attached that report to the handouts and will share that with you in the post-tweet. It's slightly off topic because it's not about flights into Vietnam, but it's quite interesting to see what the approach of the government has been, and also to compare it with how it's going now. So I leave that up to you if you want to read that. It's dated August 1st. Okay, there were 2 questions asked upon registration. I think it's good now to get Evert and Fred in the presentation, and after that we do this, these questions, we will see the presentation of Fred, and after that Evert will tell something more. We just turn the cam on and the mic on for Evert, and do the same for Fred. Hi, Evert.
Hello, yes.
Perfect.
So Fred, you can do question 1 and I will take question 2.
Yes, so on the first question, from experience, you only need the booking flight after you get first the authorization from the People's Committee, and number 2, you get the CDC documentation. But usually, from the moment you have People's Committee, we can provide you a free flight booking. So from the moment you have the CDC, the People's Committee approval, we will provide you the inbound booking so that you can use to make every arrangement, whether with a CDC hotel for quarantine, or for the arrangement from the transportation from the hotel to the hotel quarantine.
Yeah. Then I will take question number 2. So the question is, me and my family are registered in Vinh Long. At present, we are still in the Netherlands. The local government in Vinh Long is not able to allow my family to return to Vietnam. But why do we see that people registered in, for example, Ho Chi Minh City can bring back their family? So I think when I read this question, there are a few smaller subjects in this question. So I think, for example, for Vinh Long, the most important thing is to look at where your company is registered, and by the question I can assume that it also is in Vinh Long. So in that case, indeed, your company has to get approval from the Vinh Long People Committee and the Vinh Long Center for Disease Control. But of course, in Vinh Long, there are no quarantine facilities. There are no hotels where you can stay. So in that case, the nearest facility is probably Ho Chi Minh City. So in this case, it means that also in Ho Chi Minh City, your company has to ask approval again for stay, for quarantine, with Ho Chi Minh People Committee and also the local authorities, the local Center for Disease Control. And of course, also work with the hotel in Ho Chi Minh to get your quarantine plan approved. And then the second part is related to bringing your family. And indeed, at this moment, the regulation is mostly based on allowing the expert, the business manager, or let's say the worker to come to Vietnam, the person who is really going to do the work. And then for family, that is indeed a little bit of a hit and miss still. So now the government has already clarified that it is allowed to bring your family with you, but we do see some cases that, for example, the People Committee gives approval for the expert together with the family, but then there is a rejection from the Immigration Department. And in that case, it's very important to have a good staff member in your company, or perhaps also a consultant to help you with this case, because it is possible to travel with family. But an important note is that in this kind of cases, it is very much advisable to travel together. So, for example, you may think, okay, I cannot get approval for my family, so I will go first alone. But it's very important that you continue to work on the paperwork for your family, because we have seen cases that the expert came to Vietnam, but after that it's very difficult to bring separately the family. At the moment, there is no policy for bringing the family to Vietnam. So the best way is to travel together, the expert together with the family, and then they can come to Vietnam. Okay, Guido, back to you.
Thank you, Ewert and Fred, for answering these questions. I think we can now move on to the presentation of Fred. Okay, so I will stop sharing my screen now, Fred, and you can start sharing yours.
Yes, maybe I think before I'll make a sum up maybe of last week's presentation for those in case who just joined us this time. But so Cathay Airways basically resumed since a month and a half now, and so far we have not cancelled any flight. So any flight that was planned since the 2nd of July has been operated as planned. And finger crossed, we shall not cancel neither any flight from now till mid-September. So why mid-September? Because mid-September is the current extension of the current NOTAM. So the current NOTAM won't allow any foreigners to come into Vietnam unless experts, of course, but until mid-September. So right now, Cathay Airways, we have our flights. Right now, it's 4 times per week, approved until mid-September. And probably like early September will apply also for the new schedule for beyond mid-September. And probably the NOTAM extension, if extended, will be, I guess, done the same day itself on the 15th of September, like it was done mid-June. So right now, our aircraft are feeling empty, as I said, except for the experts we're bringing in. And I must say that we can do that because despite we have a good load factor, let's say, on the way out to Doha, but it's not as it used to be in the previous summers, obviously, with the peak season. The reason why we can afford is because cargo is very strong due to the low capacity and the very high demand in Vietnam. The cargo rates are very strong and supporting basically our operations. I just want to share with you maybe a very striking KPI in our industry. So in Vietnam in July, if you take all the travel agencies in Vietnam issuing, if I look at only international traffic, basically the revenue is down by minus 93% versus last year. So that's a drop of international revenue issued by the local travel agents. In the presentation, basically, I just share with you the results of the experiment we had until like since mid-July, and so far it's very good. Out of 4 flights that we have requested for landing permits, we've got 4 approvals. In total, since mid-July, we have brought in 79 experts into Ho Chi Minh City. But again, I want to stress out that it is mostly foreigners. We have not yet brought in any Vietnamese. We usually have that question. I'm going to share that also in the Q&A. We always have like Vietnamese also asking us. We have many Vietnamese also like stranded abroad. We only so far have brought in foreigners. And thanks to DBAV, obviously, webinar and other like chambers of commerce support, for the rest of August, I think we're going to have at least between 50 to 100 customers that we're going to bring in the month of August. I just share quickly the presentation. I want to go directly to this slide. which is the document required. Okay, so what is new on the last slide? Last Sunday, we had like 6 inbound customers only. The reason is that we got only the landing permits for August approved on the 31st of July. So what is new this time is, as you see below, is the COVID test. So that has been, it's a big challenge for us actually. So for this coming Sunday, we're going to have like 44 inbound experts and their families. Today, out of the 44, I think we got 40 customers who were able to provide all inclusive of the PCR test. The PCR test is a challenge. Most of them were able to provide us last week already all the documentation, People's Committee, immigration, CDC, hotel booking, but they had to take the COVID test this Monday. And get to us within 48 hours, 72 hours, the PCR test results for us to submit to the civil aviation. I think for this week, we have to remove maybe like 2 or 3 customers because they were not able to provide us that COVID test on time. And I used the Q&A from last. Oops, it's not here. The Q&A from last week to add into my presentation. I'm sorry, it's not there. There's a question that comes also very often. Is yes, that was the hotel. Thank you for clarifying, Guido. Le Méridien and M Gallery are not actually in the list of quarantine hotel. Yes, and also we had a question also asking for pets. People coming in with pets. I know that not many of us, but still, I don't think any hotel offer like pet service yet. So that will be another complication. Yes, the question was Vietnamese. I am a Vietnamese partner of an expert. Can I come in with the expert? And so far, answer is the same. Unless you can get, as a Vietnamese, a People's Committee approval, but it's going to be quite challenging because in theory, if you're Vietnamese, you're not supposed to get that approval. We will not be able to take you on board. So we are working with a few customers to get the Vietnamese partner coming with them. But so far, we have not get any successful applicants. So I will let you know in case we have such cases who are successful to get all the documentation. Yeah, so that's it for me.
I will put my mic on. We're going to go past the questions. I see a lot of people in the chat. Start with the oldest one. Matthijs made a remark saying that Korean Air also flies inbound. Fred, can you confirm that?
Yes, correct. Yes. I think the North Asian airlines, AirAsiana and Korean Airways, they have never stopped. I think like us, we stopped almost like 3 months from mid-April, from end of June, but these airlines have not stopped flying. And I believe they started to bring in first diplomats, same as us, and now they have been taking quite some skilled labor inbound.
I suppose that they fly from Seoul then, right? Into
Exactly. So, yeah. So the only challenge. Yeah, the only challenge for them is that I think that you have to reach is a transit. So unless it's a destination that you have to reach from Europe, any of the gateway where they're flying in Europe, to buy one ticket inbound via Korea. So this is the benefit for Qatar Airways, that right now we already have like almost like 86 destinations in our network. So it's easier. You don't need to fly only, for instance, to London or Paris or Frankfurt. You can fly from anywhere in Europe to reach Doha, and from there basically like come with our flight to Ho Chi Minh City. I think the benefit of Korean or AirAsiana is that if you want to be quarantined in Hanoi, for us, you have to be quarantined in Ho Chi Minh City because we only fly to Ho Chi Minh City. We had the request from some people and chambers if it was possible to have a circular flight. So the flight would arrive first in Hanoi, come down to Ho Chi Minh City, and then go back to Doha.
Okay.
That was a good idea, but the problem is that in terms of operation, it's very challenging for us to do that circular flight because of the crew. The crew kind of operating hours. It adds some extra complication for the crew. Yeah. So yeah, it's correct. So Korea, I've heard Korea, and also Air Asiana. So that's useful if you want to come in Hanoi.
Well, thanks for pointing that out. Okay, that's perfect. Then we go to the new question that is from, it's actually a remark from Emmanuel. He says there are different PCR tests, so make sure you get the right one. And it also links to the question that Alexander asked at some point. That says, and he says, so this PCR test can now not be done at the departing airport anymore, just right before boarding, because you need to have it done 3 to 7 days before departure, right? So that means that 3 to 7 days before that time, you need to go somewhere, you need to find that place in your departing country, and then you can go, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So as I said, today I think we had to transfer 2 of our customers for next week because they were unable to provide the COVID test by this evening. So we have already extended the deadline by 24 hours. But we cannot, delay further because otherwise the whole group of 40 customers won't be able to get the landing permit approved on time on Friday. So yeah, because we need to provide today the list, and obviously the civil aviation will go through all the documents they're going to receive. So the same work that we are doing right now by the team is done also by the civil aviation. They will check every document before they return the landing permit approved with the list of the 40 or whatever number of customers. So yeah, and the COVID test must be there.
Yeah.
The real-time PCR test, to be exact, as Ama is saying.
Okay, we go on with the question from Up. It's already answered. You do not fly from Doha to Hanoi, so that's easy. Suggest to. I don't think that connection is at the moment available.
No, yeah, we're waiting for the NOTAM again. The NOTAM in mid-September, and if the NOTAM is lifted, potentially we could fly to Hanoi, but right now, yes, we focus on Ho Chi Minh City.
Okay. Also, checking to see if Ebert,
see what's to Hanoi, because of course I'm based in Hanoi. So for Emirates, they do fly to Hanoi. So 2 Dutch passengers came in last Saturday or Sunday. I don't know exactly the flight schedule. At least it will be once a week. But so there is an option to fly from Amsterdam to Hanoi.
Yeah, EK is flying, I think, 3 times a week to Hanoi. Yeah, but are they doing like us? Are they selecting one specific flight per week? I'm not sure of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also not sure. I believe they are also doing a similar approach. So I have had some reports on people coming in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh.
Okay. Yeah. We'll go on with a question from Geert. He's already been helped in chat. It's about getting in without a residence card or official work permit. Is that possible?
So there must be some company be responsible for you. So that means that, for example, there is a Vietnamese company who can do all the paperwork for you. So in theory, it could be possible, but it's difficult to say. It depends if there is a company willing to do all the paperwork for you.
Okay. Going back to questions. Lynn is asking, a Vietnamese cannot book a flight without the approval of the People's Committee. That's been already answered.
Yeah.
And correct. The question that we have at the moment is coming from Serge. He's saying, our company is registered in Baria Phung Thao province. Can we stay in Ho Chi Minh City for 14 days isolation?
Yeah. So I have actually been in touch with a company that has a project in Baria Phung Thao, and they actually chartered their own aircraft to bring in the people. But because of that, the employees also had to do the quarantine in Baria Phung Thao. But they mentioned that it was actually not very nice. So in the case of Baria Phung Thao, the People's Committee assigned hotel, quarantine hotel accommodation. But the facilities was not very good. It was about 2 or 3 stars. So for this particular case, it's better to do the quarantine in Ho Chi Minh, so that you do have to ask for 2 times the approval, but the facilities in Ho Chi Minh will be better.
Okay, so what I've also seen is, for example, a case from Can Tho. For example, in Can Tho, that specific case did not get the approval from the People Committee. Does it then make sense for such a person to just simply ask for permission at another People Committee, or is that, or are they corresponding?
No. So the process starts with where the company is located. So, for example, if my company is registered in Haiphong, for example, I have to start the process there. But then, for example, my employees are landing in Hanoi, so then I have to look for quarantine facility in Hanoi.
Correct. Yeah. And same for CDC also, no? You have to start the process with the CDC in your in that example in Halong, and you also need to get the CDC approval also in Hanoi also.
Yeah. Maybe Guido, I also can share a few more experiences we received in the, let's say, last 1 or 2 weeks.
Yeah, please, if you can. Yeah.
Small list. And so also maybe to introduce myself. So I'm not an expert in this field, but I became a small expert because I'm board member of DBAV and I'm also vice chairman of Eurocham. What has happened with DBAV and also Eurocham is that a lot of expats have been stuck in Europe, so they started to contact with us to ask for support, just like what is happening now in this webinar. And what is quite interesting about the process of getting people back to Vietnam is that the process is always changing. So, for example, what we are telling you today may be completely different next week. But we have to say that in the last, let's say, 2 months, the process, especially for the expert, has become quite clear and quite stable. But just, for example, to give you an example of what changes, so the Ho Chi Minh City People's Committee and also the Hanoi People Committee have issued a list of hotels that have had a license to do a quarantine. And that means that they have the special permission and also the special facilities for to keep people there for about 14 days. But then, for example, today through informal contacts, we could receive the information that Le Méridien Hotel and also M Gallery in Ho Chi Minh are on the official list, but have decided not to continue the service of doing the quarantine the quarantine facility. And that are some of these things that continuously are changing. And also based on our experience of DBAV and Eurocham, there are some like best practices to follow. So, for example, very important is that you start preparing the documents early, and you can expect that to prepare all documents, it will take 3 to 4 weeks. So, for example, if you are already in Vietnam, but you have to go back to Europe for any reason, then it's already advisable to start preparing now with your papers. And also what is important is that you have all documentation in hand at the airport. And also before flying, keep close contact with the airline. So for example, in the case of Qatar, contact with the Qatar Airways Vietnam office to make sure all paperwork is in order. Because there have been several cases that we got contacted and they mentioned, okay, our flight has been cancelled. But in fact, the aircraft was still going, but the only thing that had been cancelled was their booking, because they did not submit all the paperwork to the airline. And at this time, the airline still has to apply for a flight permit, and they can only get the flight permit from the Vietnamese authorities when the whole dossier is complete.
Yeah.
And also another point, which is also mentioned by Fred already, is about Vietnamese citizens and also dependents. So for dependents, I already mentioned earlier that if you travel separately from the expert, that is a quite complex process, but together with the expert, that is now possible. But for Vietnamese citizens, there seems to be at the moment not really a clear process yet. Well, we do have that for expats. So we hope also that in the next coming weeks that will be clarified. And also what is important that during travel you may have a bit of inconveniences which you did not have in the past, for example in terms of, let's say, a long layover, or that you have to wear face mask or other kind of protective measures during the flight. But on the other hand, there is also now all airlines offer the flexible booking terms. So, for example, you have a ticket on the flight of Qatar Airways for today, but you have no possibilities of doing the COVID test. So then you can change your ticket most of the time free of charge. Is it correct, Fred?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
Okay, okay. And then perhaps some other quite important thing is the differences on arrival in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh. So in Hanoi, there can be quite a long waiting time to complete all the formalities. About 2 to 3 hours has been reported. And also very important to note that in Hanoi, your passport will be taken. So if you arrive at the airport, at the immigration counter, they will take your passport. And your passport, through a process, will end up in the safe of the hotel where you will stay. And then at the end of the quarantine, when you have been given the all clear, you will receive your passport back. But in Ho Chi Minh, the reports are that the whole clearance process at the airport is much faster. It's about 20 to 30 minutes. And you are also able to keep your passport. However, in both cases, both Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh, there seems to be some delay in the COVID testing. So, for example, in the past, it used to be that you would get your last test on day 12 or day 13 of the quarantine, so that the result will be there on day 14. But now there are some reports that in some cases it takes 1 or 2 or 3 days extra. So it could be that you have to stay a little bit longer in your quarantine place, perhaps 15, 16 or 17 days. But we hope that this soon will be resolved as well, as more testing capacity will be available in Vietnam.
Thank you, Evert. In fact, I have a question because, for example, I am in Vietnam. I haven't seen my family in a very long time. I want to fly back to the Netherlands. Does it make sense? And I want to come back to Vietnam again. Does it make sense for me to already arrange all my paperwork here right now? And for how long will that paperwork then be valid?
So I would indeed recommend you. Actually, the first recommendation is to try not to go to Europe in this time. But if you really have to travel, then it's indeed advisable to start preparing the paperwork in advance. But it has actually also the benefit that you already have the papers handy. For example, if there is any document that needs notarization or translation, or perhaps you have your marriage certificate, but you don't have a scanned copy, that you already have all these documents ready to go. And then for entry permit, at this moment, there is no expire date. And also, like I mentioned, the flight, the bookings are quite flexible. The same thing for the quarantine facility, that you can make already the booking, but this can be changed also on a later date. So then, indeed, it would be very much advisable to start the process when you are already in Vietnam.
Thanks. Yeah. Some other questions from the attendees. It's coming from, I think we had up already. Is there any contact info of Emirates, Eva Air in Vietnam for checking the possibility of inbound flight booking to Hanoi and paperwork?
So for Eva Air, I don't have contact. I'm not sure if they do fly here inbound. But for Emirates, we do have. So for we could share that.
Okay,
yes.
We will share that after the webinar.
I think otherwise, I think the call centers are now operating. So I think also it's possible to call the local call centers.
Okay, thanks.
Because indeed, in general, advisable to contact with the office in Vietnam. So, for example, I have had a case that the head office booked a flight for a certain passenger to Vietnam through the head office and just on the website. But then that flight was cancelled because they did not know they have to submit all the documents. So if you have a direct contact with the booking office in Vietnam, they can clearly tell you the flight status and what you need to do to get back to Vietnam. And thirdly, also if your paperwork is in order.
Yeah, correct.
And then the question from Christophe. New applications for experts without a prior work permit are suspended. That is what he states. Is that true? And do we have any more info on that?
No. So indeed, there was a bit of confusion because the DOLISA, the Department of Labor in Ho Chi Minh, sent a letter to the People Committee to request that indeed experts without work permit cannot come to Vietnam, to not issue entry permit. However, it is just still a proposal. It has not been approved yet. And even if it is approved, then in individual cases, they will still go ahead, even if you don't have the work permit.
Yeah. Okay.
However, of course, as I mentioned, it can change week by week. So what I tell now is the situation of today. So maybe next week it will be different. But as far as the situation goes now, that the documentation sent by Dulisa to the People Committee in Ho Chi Minh is still a proposal. Yeah. And there is also in other provinces no limitation. So for example, in Hanoi, with or without a work permit is still accepted.
So that is also a call for everybody that is joining this webinar, this online event. If you have news or information, even gossip or so, just send it over to us, to DBAV. We can have a look, we can assess it, and with more people, we will also know more, and this will then also become a stronger event that you can further rely on. Romain, yeah, you're asking a question, is there any Vietnamese company to support for the paperworks? Actually, at the end of the webinar, I will talk a little bit about our entry permit service. The entry permit service, I won't answer it right now. We will talk about that for about 1 minute or 2 minutes. Also on what to expect and what it costs and all those things. So I'll leave that for now. Then how long, then the question from Marion, how long is the People Committee approval valid for? I believe that is indefinite time, right? And what happens in case you need to change your flight tickets? Well, we know for sure that with Qatar Airways, you can just rebook it. They're very flexible.
Yeah. And usually we ask the customer to issue the ticket only once they gather all the documents. So to avoid, like the process of refund and, like transfer. So usually, in theory, when we make a free booking and we only issue the tickets once we have all the documents. So and if in the end, for some reason, like as I said, like we discussed earlier, like the COVID test is delayed, then no worries, we can postpone to the next flight.
Okay. We'll go on to the last question. Again, if you have any more questions, just email DBAV. I work with Fred on a bi-daily basis and with Ewert almost daily. Last question from Lynn. She's asking a question about, she says, a Vietnamese spouse to let the Vietnamese spouse contact the Vietnamese embassy, provide them with the marriage certificate and flight booking with their expert partner. The embassy will work with the immigration department to grant entry to Vietnam. But if you cannot book a valid flight, it's impossible to ask for the help from the embassy. It's always difficult, of course, to really comment on such specific cases, also because the Vietnamese embassy, I think in the Netherlands, is now involved here.
Yeah, but here I think the question is also about a marriage certificate. So I guess in this question, they try to bring back, for example, a person that has been married with a Vietnamese, and perhaps they are in Europe. But in that case, the current regulation does not provide any support. So the current regulation is meant to bring a select group of people back to Vietnam. So that means experts, business managers, diplomats, all the people that are working on projects. So you could generalize them as people that are working in Vietnam. And for example, for a Dutch person who is now in the Netherlands, but perhaps he's living in Vietnam as a retired person, there is currently no regulation to bring them to bring that kind of person back to Vietnam. So also you can contact with the embassy, but I'm not sure they will be able to help you because, like I mentioned, the regulation is only for experts and other people that are working here.
I know from the embassy in the Netherlands, Vietnamese embassy in the Netherlands, they actually have a long list of Vietnamese people wanting to repatriate. It's a difficult situation, and we're also in contact with them a lot. So if we have any updates there, then we will share those as well. Can I, in the meantime, ask, we're getting to the end of the event. We're not quite there yet. We have about 5-6 minutes to go. But please, if you can, give us some feedback on the event by clicking on the link that I've provided. And then we can use that for future improvement. You can also just say that you find it was great. It's also possible. Let me see, what do I want to share other than that? Yeah, I also have a poll. Would you like to have this event organized weekly or bi-weekly? I'm going to share that with you now. Share now. And then in the meantime, I will share my screen. The answers are running. So what Evert and me can talk a little bit. Fred, I'm going to put your cam off, but your mic stays on. And we can talk a little bit further on the entry permit service for expats seeking to return to Vietnam. What we are doing is offer a package. There are by and large 4 steps: visa application, entry permit, immigration approval, and quarantine plan approval. All those steps, we will work together with you, manage that process. We cannot guarantee a success rate, but that does answer the question of Romain. What we see happening now is we have had a few people just email us, then we can do a sort of indication that is happening with me. Sometimes I will ask for the expertise of Evert or of Frederic. And then when we say, okay, there's a valid chance that you can make it actually inside Vietnam, then this might be a good moment to start collecting the approvals. Then we will start doing that. If you're a DBAV member, that price is $400. If you're a non-member, the price is $600. It really depends on a lot of factors. Success is absolutely not guaranteed. Factors can be, for example, where your company is registered or where your inviting company is registered. Can have to do with whether you have a working permit or visa or not. As you can see in this webinar, there are so many factors that come into play, so we need to manage the expectations there. But that is the entry permit service that we offer, and of course the first hour that I put in is obviously for free, but then after that I need to charge for that. Evert, is there anything that you can add to that story?
No, maybe just to come back also to the question of Roman. We have to have there must be a company to hire you or to do the paperwork for you. Was, for example, one of the reasons why the DOLISA made the proposal of limiting the entry permit only to people with work permits, is that there is a lot of Chinese people that come to Vietnam by using fake companies. So the companies actually does not exist, but they are doing it to apply for paperwork. They are looking at to make it more strict. But it also means that when you want to come to Vietnam, there must be a valid company being able to, let's say, sponsor your paperwork.
Yeah. So that means that you don't have to have a company registration in Vietnam, but you do need an inviting company that can claim and say that can claim that you are an expert and that can declare that and sign that.
Yes.
So exactly. That's good news for every Dutch exporter, that you can get into Vietnam if your customer usually will vouch for you. And then it's always a good idea to have us manage that process, work together with you in that entry permit service. Okay, that's that. A big thank you to Fred and Emmanuel and Evert for joining the webinar. There are at the moment no further questions. What happens after this webinar is we will send out a newsletter with all the takeaways. I will make sure that the first newsletter is in there as well. There was a first episode that is already on YouTube. This second episode will also be on there. Other than that, I see that the result of the poll is that a lot of people would actually like to have this event organized on a weekly basis and not on a bi-weekly basis. Again, we need to manage expectations there. Things do change sometimes, but not that fast. On a weekly basis, we can absolutely deliver that. That's no problem, but those will probably be Q&A webinars where you can just ask questions to our experts. And that will take about 15 or 20 minutes, and then we will move on accordingly. All right, I'm very curious.